win. Now, had he not thrown that interception and they go on to win the game,
and they kick a field goal, let's say, yes.
I think this is, as we go through this and try and figure out how many Super Bowls the Vikings might have had they won these NFC Championship games, this is another one that I think they could have had. The Saints went on to beat the Colts pretty easily in that game, 31-17 in Super Bowl 44. And I don't remember a lot about that Colts team, but I don't think it was their defense was very suspect. Was it not, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, that was not a great Colts team. That was Jim Caldwell
that was
the year after Tony retired.
That was the onside kick by Sean Payton at halftime. What was the game? How close was the game at that point?
I think the Colts were up like 10-6 at the half, I think, or something like that.
That changed the entire tenor of that game.
And I remember that game too. That onside kick was big because I think it was something like in real time, the Colts didn't run an offensive play in real time, not game time, but real time for like over an hour. If you include like the end of the first half and halftime, and then the Saints recovering the onside kick and going down and scoring, the Colts went like an hour and 10 minutes or something without running an offensive play in real time.
That's insane.
I think now Favre was mangled after that game, and as we found out, it went on to become the whole Bounty Gate game and all that stuff. And so Favre definitely wouldn't have been healthy in that Colts game. He definitely would have played in that Colts game. Played. I think the Vikings win that game. I really do, because Peyton Manning would have been a pain in the butt to put up with and could have had a good game. But if you guys recall, that Vikings front four, Williams, Wall, Jared, Allen at right end, Ray Edwards at left end, who was not a bad player at that time.
Yeah.
The linebacker core was okay. So yeah, I think if we're going back to the what if card right now, 87, 2009, very, very plausible that you could say that they would have won Super Bowls.
They would have been pretty healthy on defense because remember Cedric Griffin got hurt. Cedric Griffin, I think, tore his ACL in overtime.
Yes, that's right. No, I had forgotten, but you're right.
He would have been healthy.
You're right.
For the Super Bowl if Favre hadn't thrown the pick and Longwell had made the field goal. But yeah, this is the one. The reason why I've always kind of felt like the Vikings would have won the Super Bowl that year is that Jim Caldwell got massively outcoached by Sean Payton in that Super Bowl. Massively outcoached. And Brad Childress, in some ways, had kind of outcoached Sean Payton in the NFC Championship game. If you just all the damn fumbles and then Favre throwing the pick, that ended up, kind of deciding the game. But the Vikings, in every other facet of the game that day, outplayed the Saints.
All right, we have one more NFC Championship what if for the Minnesota Vikings on today's Purple Daily, and that was just 2 years ago in the NFC Championship game when they lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. 38-7 was the final in that one, and two very good teams going at it. Coming into the game, the Eagles were 15-2 on the season, or excuse me, 15-2 on the season. Vikings were 14-3 on the season. So two really, really good football teams. I don't know if you guys remember, but the Vikings were actually the favorite in that one. They were a 3-point favorite.
Royce declared they were going to kick the Eagles' butts in Philadelphia.
That is not how it played out. 38-7, the final in that game. And the Eagles, of course, would go on to win a very tight Super Bowl against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots. Your recollections, memories, thoughts from that one, gentlemen?
Manny, you can go first on this one.
I just remember in that NFC Championship game when the Vikings marched right down the field in the first drive of the game, and Keenum hit Kyle Rudolph on a kind of a fade route touchdown into the corner of the end zone.
And you thought, here we go.
And I thought it was 7-0 Vikings, and I thought, here we go. It's happening. This is gonna happen. It was the Phil Mackey hashtag. It's happening. And then was it Patrick Robinson that got the pick six?
Oh, and Keenum's arm got hit as he threw, but it was it was an ill-advised pass.
It was Chris Long, I think.
And he crossed.
It was Patrick Robinson.
And he crossed the entire field and scored a touchdown to tie the game, and it was over after that.
And then LeGarrette Blount trucked Andrew Sendejo into the end zone to put the Eagles up 14-7, and it was over.
And Harrison Smith had a bad game too. I'm going to say in the what if world, though, that the Vikings, being the first team ever in the history of this league to play a home Super Bowl, lose that game based on the fact that Zimmer gets outcoached by Belichick. And my reason for saying that was the Vikings had a horseshoe up their butt to beat the Saints in that first game. If you recall, the Saints came back in the second half. Drew Brees put on one of the great comeback performances on the road in NFL playoff history, which no one recalls because of the pass to Diggs. And then with what we saw in the playoffs, I cannot say that Mike Zimmer could have beaten Belichick. And Peterson in that game for Philly coached a great game. So I say that's a loss. So I've got in our world right now, through all of these, I've got the Vikings winning 2 Super Bowls.
Which you'd take, I assume.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Right?
This franchise, hell yeah, you take that.
Yeah,
you take one.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you,
here's the ultimate what if, though. Forget the individual cases of each NFC Championship game. If it played out the way that you guys are talking about now, where they win these NFC Championship games, they have 5 NFC Championships and 2 Super Bowl rings. How different a landscape and how different a fan base are we talking about here in Minnesota with the Vikings?
Well, I think it's very
Like
very
the
different.
psyche, the mentality.
Oh, I think it's completely. I think. Look at your Cubs. You get one, it changes everything. I think if you have one Super Bowl, the defeatist, here we go again, something's going to go wrong feeling that I have is probably long gone. So I think the psyche, and this is why I've always wanted to see the Vikings win a Super Bowl, because I have no idea what would happen.
2 things.
Vikings fans wouldn't know how to react. They don't know how to be happy about
I would
this
want.
team.
It'd be like the Cubs. I don't know how. I want to see it.
That's great.
2 things. I think if the Vikings win the Super Bowl in 87, 88, Bernsey has a statue somewhere. And Packer fans to this day would still hate Brett Favre if he would have won a Super Bowl for the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh yeah, no, that
2010.
bridge would still be burned.
His number would
Absolutely.
not be retired. They would hate him.
Okay, but would his number be retired in US Bank Stadium?
Oh God,
yeah,
yes,
for sure.
Absolutely.
Would that not have been
for one season with the Vikings, and he would have? I'm pretty sure he would have retired.
I would
would
pay.
Not have come
Oh
back.
no, he would not have, and he shouldn't have, and he didn't want to. I would pay a lot of money to have that happen, to see that. That whole dynamic would be so interesting. Brett Favre has many Super Bowl titles in 1 year in Minnesota as he had in his career in Green Bay, and the amount of animosity because he, you know what? He did everything he wanted but get a championship.